Hey, everybody. Welcome. Dating God's Way. Hey. Come on
Hey,
in the room. Come on 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 in the room. Everybody, welcome to Dating God's Way tonight. Hey. What? Dating God's Way. Dating God's Way. Hey, 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 hey. Hey. Gonna share tonight? All right, here we are. Here we are. Say. There you go. Hey, y'all. Gonna share. Hey.
hey,
Time to shine. Yeah, we at it again. Yeah, we at it again.
Impact. We at it again. Literally impact. We at it again, y'all. Hey, y'all. Hey, boo.
hey, y'all. Hey. Welcome to Dating God's Way on another Tuesday night at 8 p.m. We live tonight.
We live tonight.
We are live. We are taking comments. We are taking questions. So put it in your chat. I want to shout out Cavante's business, his photography business, his party planning business.
Grand Memories, I believe it is, isn't it?
Grand Memories. Yes.
And yes.
If you need a photographer for any kind of event, call Cavante. Um,
Grand
Grand
Memories
Memories.
Entertainment Photography. He also will bring backgrounds and different things to your events. Yes.
He's
Grand
live on
Memories
he's
Entertainment.
live on Facebook.
Yes.
So
Search
get up
up
with
Grand Memories. Yes.
KAVONTE.
No, search up Grand Memories Entertainment.
Okay, Grand Memories Entertainment.
Yes, like his page and check out his business.
All
Yes.
right. Also, shout out to Tara Adair Creative Studios.
Woo-hoo.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Check her out. If you need branding, if you need creative ideas,
Yeah.
for your brand and to get things out, check out Tara Adair. Yes. Shout out Nichelle Sweets, her cookies, her
Sweets
cakes,
by Shell. Sweets by Shell.
Sweets by Shell. Check her out, and she's a lawyer. So I don't know what that had to
That
do
would
with
have
it,
to do with anything,
but
yes.
on TMZ, like, and I'm a lawyer, so
And they
Nichelle,
not telling the truth. But yeah,
so
she's a
Nichelle,
real lawyer.
they on TMZ real lawyer too, but she's
Oh
a
yeah,
lawyer.
that's true. Okay. That's
Okay,
something. Yes. Hey
she's a lawyer.
y'all.
So you get justified cookies from Nichelle. All right.
And let's shout out Designs by
Yeah,
Kanisha.
Kanisha,
Designs by Kanisha. Yes, and
yeah,
yes.
designed by Kanisha.
Yes.
So,
What we
what's
talking about
tonight
tonight?
about? What are we talking about? Tonight, we're talking about talk is cheap.
Oh yes. We're back in our communications
We
part of
back.
our series.
Yes. So where did this come from, right? I don't know where it came from. Um, but I was just thinking and meditating and thinking about just things and what do we mean by like talk is cheap, right? So how do we value talk?
Mm-hmm.
How do we value communications? How do we value what somebody puts out
Ooh.
in
Mm-hmm.
their words, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so usually we say like talk is cheap when things seem somewhat like a unbelievable task or unbelievable undertaking to perform, and we say, "Oh, well, talk is cheap," um, because in our minds, we're telling you that um, it's better seen than done.
Yeah, you're not doing enough.
You're not doing
Oh,
enough.
this cheap child. You ain't
Um,
doing enough.
Sometimes talk is cheap because, as you're saying, experience. Our
Mm.
experience with the other person, they have shown themselves to talk a lot.
Oh man.
Um, and sometimes they talk themselves out of their own. They talk themselves into trouble, and they talk themselves out of what they are putting their mouth on, or what they have put their mouth on in the past.
Mm.
So they have a history of not doing what they said that they would do. Right? We
Yeah.
used, we used to say word is bond. Right? That was a way of us saying, like, you got my word, I'm gonna stand by my word. Right?
Yeah.
But with the history of not standing by your word, then it becomes a thing of, well, hey, talk is cheap. Now you got to show, you know, put up or shut up, right?
Okay.
And so tonight I want to talk about, like, talk is cheap, how cheap talk is in relationships.
Wow. Yeah.
How cheap talk is in relationships.
Yeah.
How sometimes somebody can paint a grand picture and not willing to walk out that grand picture.
Mm. Yeah, I think that's great, Pastor Will, talking about how cheap talk shows up in relationships. And I think that's important. When we think about the word cheap, you think about it's of little worth because little effort was put forth. So it's cheap, right? You buy something and it's cheap, right? It's plastic. Little effort was put into manufacturing it, right? So it's of little worth. And so, how much, how does cheap talk really show up in relationships? And I'm thinking of one thing specifically, Pastor Will. I think one of the ways that cheap talk shows up in relationship is when it goes to intentions. So
Yeah.
when dating, being in relationship with one another, when stating intentions, this even with your best friend, with your girlfriend, with your friend, is when you are, setting intentions, purpose, right? Either that word is bond or it's cheap. So intentions, I believe, is one place where cheap talk can come up, where you like, I intend to, like, I will, I'm gonna be there for you through thick and thin. If you call me, I'm gonna be there. Intentions, right?
Yeah. And we have to begin to measure our own intentions
Yeah.
and think about, now, how am I going to live out this intention that I'm putting my words on?
Yes.
How am I going to live out this expectation that I have built up? Because now, if I don't live if I don't live up to that expectation, now the rest of the words that's going to come out of my mouth, they're going to become cheapened and cheapened, and now it's going to be about cheap talk. Oh, I'm going to get the job. 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 A year later, you ain't got the job that you were going to get, but I'm still going to get the job. And it's cheap talk because really you're not really putting any effort into what you are saying, or the effort that you have been putting into it kind of wane, and now your talk is cheap.
Yeah. So in other words, you're saying, Pastor Will, that for talk not to be cheap, it requires effort and intention.
Absolutely.
Yes, it requires effort and intention. You would think this is common sense, though. You would think like, oh, this common sense. Like you need to have effort into your talk, but it is not that common, Pastor Will. It's not that common.
It isn't. It's not that common because we have a bad habit of magical thinking.
Ooh, magical thinking. Yes.
Magical thinking as, if I think it, if I say it, then it should happen. It should happen just like I said it. right?
Yeah.
The only effort I have to put into it is to talk it, is to speak it, and then because it sounded good. Now, we're starting this business sound good, but yet if I don't make any effort to do the business, it's just the idea that I have, and it's just talk that I'm speaking.
Let me get preachy for a minute. Romans 4:17. Somebody thinking Romans 4:17, but then the Bible say, speak not as though they are, or speak things that are not as though they are. And let me just help you with something. If you speak things that are not as though they are, and you never line up by faith with what's not, you ain't gonna get it. Right. So you can be speaking something. Yes, the Bible does say that. Speak things that are not as though they are. But then you also have to line up by faith. Faith without works is dead. So you need the whole context of that. Because I'm speaking by faith. You speaking by faith, but you're never lining your actions up with faith. Can't do it. It's magical.
It's magical. When the Bible talked about, it was talking about, if I'm not mistaken, it was talking about Abram speaking those things.
Was absolutely
Abram and his lineage, before he met Jesus, before he met God, that he was speaking things into existence, right?
Yeah.
Abram.
Abram.
Yeah, he was speaking things into existence. Now let's understand. I mean, Bible study here. Before Abram went on his journey with God, they weren't worshiping God. So they were speaking things out of existence from another realm.
Yeah.
And they was also, Abram and his family was rich.
Right.
So they were able to speak.
They had some substance.
So they had they had effort with
faith.
There
must be effort with the faith. Yes, y'all.
Yes.
It must be effort with the faith. In other words, with your talk must come some effort. Okay? With your talk must come some effort. Okay? We can't just be faith talking. Oh, yeah, I see us in this. I see us. You see us in the future. But you ain't making no effort to get us to that future. Cheap talk.
I remember, I'm sure we shared this story time and time again on Dating God's Way.
Okay, give it to us, Pastor.
I believe it was our first date. No, it had to be later on in our dating. And we sat in the car, and I gave you a vision of what marriage was going to be with us.
Oh, yeah.
And we were going to be, we were going to be a couple that ministry can model after, and our relationship was going to be a ministry. And
you can talk that talk, can't you, Pastor?
and you know what? I was saying things I didn't understand.
That's correct.
And for real, after we got married, it was cheap talk, because I really didn't have any real effort.
Evidence.
Or not even evidence. I really didn't have any idea of how to get to this picture that I painted for you, right? And then it was cheap talk.
It was cheap talk.
It was talk. I don't want to say it was talk to sucker you in, but it was talk to make me feel valuable in your life and for me.
Yeah, because I was about ministry.
Yes.
So yes, it was cheap because it was pulling me into something that I value.
And ladies and gentlemen, you have to be careful when somebody is cheap talking you.
That's correct, because they might not be able to back it up. So you better be. Hallelujah. You better be.
Thank God for some grace over these 20 years.
Hallelujah.
That it was tried and tested by the Holy Spirit, and that the Holy Spirit grace.
Yes. Yeah, that's why you need to date God's way. So God can be in it.
Yes.
Yes. You're gonna need God for a shout. Yeah. We need God for sure. Okay, so intentions is one place where cheap talk shows up. Intention, expectations. But Pastor Will, another place where the cheap talk really come in at.
What's that?
When you are in a relationship with someone and you are talking about not just the future, but also talking about present moments. For example, let me give you an example of present moments. When I tell you that I'm talking to you, and in the present moment I've made a mistake. And instead of like owning that mistake in the present moment, I'm like, well, things happen, this my talk become cheap because I'm really not apologetic and or showing up in the present moment, having the right conversation. That talk can be cheap.
That talk can be cheap.
If I'm not showing up in the present to deal with what's happening now, it's cheap talk.
Wow.
Because there's no effort and intention being put forth for what's happening right now. Right? I know what you're saying you gonna do. Oh, next time I'm gone. Next time, I'm just tell you how cheap talk sound. Next time I'm gone. Next time. No, but what you gonna do right now? Cheap talk.
Cheap talk. Cheap talk.
What you gonna do now? How are you going to make effort to change what is happening right now? Not in the future, not the next time. Okay. And see, that's one of the things we can learn about relating to each other is you want to go to the future. What about today? What about how nasty, stinky, dirty your talk was today? What about that? Your attitude. What about that? But next time I'm going next time. What about, cheap talk?
Relationships are, as we keep saying, relationships are time and effort invested.
Yeah.
It's time and invested time.
Yeah.
Invested talk.
Talk and time.
Invested intentions.
Yeah.
And invested efforts.
Yeah.
Beyond the talk.
Yeah. 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 I like what our resident therapist says tonight. When it's cheap, it's no room for accountability or responsibility.
Yeah.
When that talk is cheap, it's no room for accountability or responsibility. Right? I'm not investing anything behind, my accountability, my responsibility.
Yeah.
Hey, Brother Q, welcome. Good to see you tonight. Yes, and yes.
Sometimes cheap talk is about getting out of things.
Come on, talk about that. Yeah.
You say what you say what you need to say, so that you can renege on your commitment. Right? Cheap talk. I mean, it's a way of cheapening the I got a loss for words.
Yeah.
But go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, I'm just it's cheapening the experience.
Yes, come on.
It's cheapening the experience. That's what I want to say. It's cheapening the experience
of
something actually happening.
Yes. Because we can't get nowhere with cheap talk.
But we can't get nowhere if we're not committed to the idea of having the experience.
Yeah.
And we have to commit, and that's what we have to commit to the idea of having the experience so that we can have the experience.
Yes. Pastor Will, another place of this cheap talk is along the same lines is appeasing people. I'm going to tell you what you want to hear so we can move forward from this conversation. That's cheap. It's not worth nothing. Okay, so that's one way I think about cheap. It's not worth nothing. Right? And so you're telling me what you think I want to hear to appease me. And now, as you're stating, Pastor Will, we've lost the ability to gain something from this talk that we should be having. We lost our ability to gain something out of this conversation that we need to have. Cheap talk, telling me what you think I want to hear. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's really unfair.
It really is.
It's really unfair because we typically don't do these things until there is time spent into the relationship and there's a tie or bond that is there, and then we begin to take the other for granted.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Because you showed up with 5 cents, but you want to go get lobster.
Wow.
Because you know I have lobster money. Let's put it on the line.
Yeah.
You know I have lobster money. And so you came with 5 cents with the expectation of getting lobster. And that's how sometimes it's unbalanced in relationship. You come with 5 cents worth of cheap talk, but you expect me to carry the relationship with my ability to communicate, with my ability. That's unfair to the person who's carrying the responsibility and the weight of having the right talks, having the hard talks. It's unfair.
You know, I'm gonna tell you what crawls my skin, right? A little bit what crawls my skin.
Okay, tell us.
Is to see a young lady that's driving her nice car, rims, everything clean, and she sitting up intently driving, and the dude just got the passenger seat just leaned back. It bothers me, y'all.
Oh,
it bothers me. I'm nobody, but it still bothers me because it's a semblance of what could be going on. Like, dude, sit up. You laying around. You stretched out, and she doing all the work. That's what it shows me.
Yeah.
You're acting cheap.
You acting cheap. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, you acting cheap. You acting cheap. So, one of the things that the dictionary talks about, the dictionary actually has this phrase in it. Talk is cheap. And the definition, Pastor Will, is for talk is cheap, is someone will not do what they promise. So when we don't place the right value on our talk, on our conversations, it's really because we're not giving enough thought to following through with what we're promising with our mouth.
Yeah.
What we're promising with our words. And I think, Pastor Will, this is also how a lot of relationships begin to erode. Okay. Now, this dating, this is friendships. A lot of conversations begin to erode, a lot of relationships begin to erode because somebody too cheap to put enough value on the conversations and the talk that they're having one with the other. Yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah. Let me give you another cheap talk. We ready for this one? Fantasy. Fantasy is another cheap talk. What fantasy look like? We just in the clouds. Oh, yes, because one day I see us. Going back to Pastor Will example a little bit. We were in ministry, so it wasn't as fantasy as I'm about to get. But this fantasy of creating something that you have no intention really to create with that person.
Yeah.
Right. And we usually see this around getting panties. Okay. This is when somebody's like trying to get it. Right. A lot of fantasy stuff going on.
Right.
I can see us. I can see you. I can see you walking around my house with a lot of fantasy get caught up when somebody's trying to get something.
Yeah.
Right? When somebody's trying to get something from you. So we also got to be aware Cheap talk can be also a red flag, Pastor Will. Right? As I used to, or as I say sometimes, somebody trying to get in your drawers. That's it. That's
Yeah,
true, Pastor Will. They cheap talking you into a cheap experience.
absolutely. Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. That-
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Look at your face. Yeah.
yeah, you just you knocked that one out the park, boo. Go ahead.
Yeah. And so yeah, let's get into a few more before we get into one more like meat thing. It's like, you know, cheap talk also is gossip. You know, why you always talk about somebody? Right? Making relationships about talking about other people is cheap. And we know a lot of that, especially in our culture now, everything is about looking at other people's lives, right? It's Facebook, it's Instagram, it's the story, this body, that body. Everybody's looking at the lives of other people. And sometimes we can get into cheap talk, having opinions about other people's lives. That's cheap. You have an opinion about something you have nothing to do with. That's cheap, Pastor Will.
I got I got one online with that one.
Okay, come on.
You know, another part of cheap talk is influencing somebody's bias
Mm-hmm.
to be akin to yours.
Yeah.
You know, if they like grape Kool-Aid, don't make them hate grape Kool-Aid just because you don't like it.
That's correct. That's
Right?
correct. Yeah.
You're trying to control their bias because you don't like something.
Cheap.
It's cheap.
It's cheap. It's cheap. Let me have my own opinion. Whether it's about a person, a place, a thing that I'm doing, I should have the ability to have my own opinion, my own value that I put on something. But you want to cheat me out by influencing, trying to influence, make me biased against something that you not feeling. Right. And I see that happens in relationships a lot, Pastor Will, especially with us, you know, Christians.
Yeah.
Right? With Christians, people try to tell you what your experience should look like, you know, how your, you know, relationship with God should look like, what your church should look like, what your Bible study should look like. Why you all in my worship? Here's my worship, all in my worship. That's home to God. Why you all in my worship? You
Here's my
cheat.
worship, all of my worship.
You cheat. Why you trying to influence me with your biases about how?
Right.
Why?
Get out of my worship.
Get out of my worship. You cheat.
Mm.
Get that there.
Ooh, that's
Yeah.
heavy.
Yeah.
That's
So how do we start putting some value? Let's get it. It's 8:30.
Yeah.
How you start putting some value on this talk? Right? How do we move from cheap talk to rich talk? How we get some how we start putting some value on it?
Yeah, because our communications need value.
Yes, come on.
And our relationships are built off of valuable communications.
Yes.
Our relationships thrive when communications are valued. So go ahead, Pastor E. What you got? I know you got some things. Come on, Miss Clinician.
Pastor, you know that when we talk about this, I love what you stated, Pastor Will, about that. Our communication needs value. Relationship thrives off of valuable communication. I love that. You know, I think, you know, part of what I'm thinking about as we start this convo, I would also like to hear from you guys. Have you seen cheap talk show up in your relationship? Right? Have you been a person that do some cheap talking and you know it, depending on the person it is or how you feel about the person? Do you participate in cheap talk? So I want to see that. Get in our comment section. Give us some talk back. Have you been a part of cheap conversations, cheap talk? What you doing out there? Give us some talk back in the comments as we get ready to go down our list here, Pastor Will.
the old cats used to say you are jiving. You jiving. That's what they used to call cheap. You jiving.
That's true. That's true. That used to be.
You jive time turkey. That was my Uncle Josh.
Oh my gosh, you know what? All the way back to the 70s, Pastor Will. Johnstown Turkey. Okay, yes. Okay, so thanks for getting us some comments going about this small talk. But you know, when we think about taking it up, I remember let me give a story before we get into it. Pastor Will, you remember when we first got married? And you guys, I wanted to have intentional conversations. Okay, so I wanted to have like these worksheets that led to conversations that we look at this picture. That led us into conversations and really got into some heart matters. Because I'm thinking like we're going on away. You know, this is a great time for us to have some intentional conversations, how things are going. And you know what Pastor Will used to be like, y'all, sick of me. Okay, he was sick of me. He was sick. You were sick of it, boo.
I was done.
Done, right? But you know what I found out about it, and he found out too. It took him some time, y'all, to get there. But what we found out is a part of rich conversation is taking the time to talk about things intentionally, right? Taking a pause. Say?
It saved our marriage.
It
saved us. I mean, not that we were in a oh my gosh, we're about to get divorced place, but it added value to our marriage, which in turn saved the quality of our marriage.
Save the quality, absolutely. And I think that would be the number one place to start with rich conversation, or going from a place of cheap talk to rich talk, is to take time to have intentional conversations. And I'll give y'all a little bit of example about the types of things we talked about. You know, pausing, because that's what we did. We paused. A lot of times went away, and also like, you know, when we sometimes get away from our phone, get away from the kids, we still do that, at least quarterly. That, you know, part of pausing allows you to have conversations about things that you don't talk about on a day-to-day, right? And so intentional conversation is, you know, making sure that we're talking about things that's not about our children, that's not about, you know, necessarily our day-to-day bills and things like that. But when you're dating God's way, you also want to pause to talk about things that may be of deeper context, right? That you haven't talked about yet. How you feel about family? How you feel about, you know, how's our communication going, right? And, you know, sometimes you'll find those conversations that is like, oh, wow, you know, you've been kind of disrespecting me lately. You know, you've been kind of like flip it with me or whatever. Sometimes we got to do the conversation. We like, oh, for real? I didn't even know I was doing that, because we were just going along with our day to day. That's why you take time to pause and have intentional conversations. Anything to add to that, Pastor Will?
No, I really don't. That's good. Taking time to have intentional conversations. The intentional conversations. I'm getting echo now.
It might be me.
Okay, turn your speakers down.
I'm turning it down now. Yeah.
Thank you.
Uh-huh.
But the intentional conversations, you know, on one hand, somebody's going to feel like, oh, this is good, and on the other hand, somebody's going to feel like, OMG, what did I do? But you have to have ground rules when you go into these intentional conversations.
Yes.
That we are not having an argument, but that we are having this conversation to come to level set, or to see where we are together, so that we can move further in our relationship through this, whatever we're going to communicate to each other.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's an excellent point. Have ground rules for conversations. Have ground rules. What do some of those ground rules look like, Pastor Will?
So some of those ground rules look like, look, we're about to have a conversation. We're not fussing.
So no yelling,
With no yelling, no elevator voices.
no shutting down.
Now, we may get emotional, but as you said, we won't shut down. We won't throw in the towel. This is not a breakup conversation.
Nobody blowing up in this.
At least not yet. But nobody. But we're going to have a civil conversation about this, whatever civil may mean for your relationship.
Yeah. I think getting into that ground rules. I think one of the way to get to rich conversation is to communicate openly and honestly. Right. And that seemed like, oh, that should have been like that's it right there. But in reality, that's a hard thing to do. When you're talking to someone that you care about, maybe that you even love, communicating openly and honestly can be hard because you want that person to be okay with what you're saying. You you don't want them to be mad, you want them to be upset. And so communicating openly and honestly, one thing I'm gonna say about this, Pastor Will, is I think this is so important for us as believers. You have to be able to talk openly and honestly about, what you desire, but then also about your boundaries. That communicating openly and honestly, this is how you get the rich talk. You got to be able to state what you want, you desire, and then what you don't want.
Yeah.
And this is very important when in dating and in marriage, when it comes to sex. Okay, so let's get in it. Is that when you're not able to communicate openly and honestly about what is a no, a stop sign, and what is a go. This is how a lot of people get into sexual relationships that they don't desire. But also when they get to marriage, they don't have a good context for having healthy conversations, even about intimacy and sex as well, Pastor Will.
Yeah, I'm just reading some of the comments that people are making about what they did, cheap talk. And I mean, this is astounding. This is amazing. Thank you guys for commenting.
Saying things to impress.
Saying things to impress.
Just saying things.
Yeah, right.
Just saying things.
It's just saying things and talking, not intentional.
Yeah.
Wow. This is this is good. This is eye opening.
Go ahead.
But it's also a reflection of what we have to recognizing, wow, I was a cheap talker.
I was a cheap talker.
And now I'm transforming from cheap to valuable conversations.
Yes.
Valuable conversations that require intentional talking.
Intentional talking, open and honest, being open and honest, having some ground rules. All these things are important. I think another one we don't talk about enough too, Pastor Will, is friendliness.
Yeah.
It's like if we're gonna have a rich conversation, you gotta be friendly. Because if you've been all nasty and aggressive, it's hard. Okay? Or if you've been real quiet and nothing, that's hard too. You gotta be friendly. Be friendly and like kind and stuff, like positive attitude. All of those things go into helping with having this rich type of talk, Pastor Will.
And that's one of the things that I've really been encouraging for those that are dating is to really be really good friends with who you are dating, right?
Yes.
And building that friendship so that you will have something of value to talk about.
Yeah.
On a day-to-day basis.
Yes.
Right. And so that's one of the things that I've really been encouraging with people that are dating is to become really good friends. Get away from the the marriage thinking and all that other stuff.
Right.
That's going to happen after you become friends.
Yeah.
Right? Become friends, and then let's get into marriage. But let's become friends first.
Yeah, I like that about you. I like that we can friend it up. That's a big part of. I do feel like that's a big part of like our talking space too. Is like we don't get far apart from each other because we can have you know conversations with each other, so we don't get far apart. We don't get you know distant. And that's another thing about that talk that allows you to stay close to your partner, person you're dating, person you're married to, is being able to talk on that level. I have one more big one, Pastor Will, that I want to give us before we get to any more questions. Volume and clarity. So what we talk about now, volume and clarity. It's important that when you're speaking that you are clear and audible. Okay. Right. It's like if we're having a rich conversation, I have to be able to understand what you're saying. Right. And that takes some intentionality and being effective with the type of conversation we're having right now. If we're having an intentional conversation and you like, well, it's whatever you say, whatever. It's like, yeah, I just don't even know what's happening right now. Okay, so that doesn't you don't have volume and you don't have clarity, so it doesn't allow for a rich conversation because I can't understand you, and also it's like it's nothing to like. It makes it awkward.
Yeah.
It's awkward. So there has to be volume and clarity. Yes, yes, and yes. Rich. Oh,
Yeah.
my friend, the whisperer Seinfeld. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Ooh.
You know, always or consistently speaking under your voice will really undermine the relationship
Yeah.
because you are mumming your thoughts. Um, and then when the person says, "Huh," you be like, "Oh, nothing, never mind," or whatever. Um, you're really not sharing your thoughts of what you're really thinking in the moment,
Yeah.
which relationships require.
Yeah.
When you're talking about building relationships, I need to know. I need to know what you're thinking. I need to understand what you're thinking so that I can accommodate you or not accommodate you according to how I know you to think. But I don't know how you think if you keep thinking under if you keep talking under your breath and stuff.
That's it. You know what, Pastor Will? This remind me of like when people, I'm thinking about this with marital counseling. When people come to marital counseling and they like, it's over. It's over, and the other person is sideswiped. And I'm just like, so you've been in a relationship together 10 years, 5 years, 7 years, and you had no idea that that person was rolling out because it was too much cheap talk within that relationship.
Wow.
There was no expectation or demand put on the relationship to have for real conversations. So when a person got up and left, it's not a surprise if you haven't been having any real conversations. You don't know where they are, as you're stating right now, Pastor Will. You don't know where they are, so it should not be a surprise when they leave. Right? We have to invest in these conversations because it puts a demand on the relationship for me to know where you are. I'm giving myself to a relationship and I don't even know where you are. That's crazy, 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 Pastor Will.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
So let's talk about 4 communication styles, Pastor Will. 4 types of communication, 3 types of communication. Let's get into 3. So, how do you have these rich conversations? You can have it verbally, right? And that I'm going to give you different ways to communicate because some people like this is too hard. Okay, this is too hard. I got to do this. It seems very hard. So I'm gonna give you a lot of ways to do it, especially when it's a hard conversation. Okay, you can communicate by spoken language. That's verbal. Okay. And that one means that you actually are using your confident speaking voice. Okay. I'm going to give you the whole thing today. You're going to avoid filler words. Okay. What's some filler words? You just putting anything in there just to keep the conversation going. Okay. It's foolery. Okay. So take out the filler words and also take out jargon. You know how I feel about you, boo. Okay, that's just jargon. You know how I feel. I feel good about. You know how I feel. I do not know. That's why we're communicating. See that? Got anything on verbal, Pastor Will?
Well, I'll say this about verbal is like really clearly state your intent.
Yes,
My intent is to marry you.
that's right.
My intent is to be with you.
That's right. Or my
And
intent is to not marry nobody.
and these are some of the things that I'm doing to 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 pursue
Mm-hmm.
what I intend to do.
That's it.
These are the things that I'm doing.
Use them words.
Here, look, here are the receipts of what I'm
Hey.
doing. I ain't gonna show you the receipt of the ring yet, but I'm gonna just show you the receipts of things that I'm doing to bring us to this special day that we call marriage. Marriage. If you're talking that marriage talk,
That's right. Are you talking about dating talk? What we doing?
what we're doing,
So we just doing anything for 5 years? We just been dating? What we talking about?
what we talking about.
I'm blown away. People that's dating 20 years and they had no conversation about what we doing.
Look, I've talked to the pastor. We got premarital counseling starting next week.
That's it. That's it. You coming or you're not? Because I'm sick of it. Communication, y'all.
Because now your talk have actions with it.
That's it. That's it. We moving. We moving.
Be moving.
Okay? All right. The next one is nonverbal. Okay. And this is when you communicate by the way of body language, facial expression. I'm big with that. Okay. I'm real big with doing things that go with my voice. Okay. I can't help that. It's me. Right. And so, but remember your body is talking. So when you're showing up for rich talk, you got to be aware, right? The person talking to you like that. Like that's just it. You have said a lot. Okay, you have said a lot without saying anything. So you also have to be aware of your nonverbal communication.
Yeah.
Anything with that, Pastor?
Nope, none at all.
Yeah, be intentional. Okay, be careful. And also make sure you're mimicking like the seriousness or the non-seriousness of what's happening at the moment. Be careful about that. Because I'm serious and you laughing and stuff. I'm like, what? Right? Or you crying and I'm just like, child, just go ahead. You'll be all right. No, that don't match, right? So watch your nonverbal. And then the last one I'm gonna do for tonight is written. Written. Okay. You know what we used to do with written, Pastor Will? It took us some time to be able to have certain conversations without a lot of emotion or because we communicate so different, right? I'm very like I want to have the whole conversation. He wants that process through. So kind of our meet in the middle was written communication, right? It was our ability to send an email to each other, to write a note to each other. It was another way to get us to a space before we could come to the table. And so written communication is also something that you may want to think about as you are getting into more rich talk.
And writing in turn is a process of thinking.
Yes.
And it allows you to see what you are thinking on paper and give you a chance to edit it out. Like, you know what, I really don't mean it this way.
Yeah.
Or I don't am I really thinking like this? Then maybe I need to go to the prayer closet or into the prayer room.
Yeah, I am a harsh writer. So this is another thing you need to know about yourself. Like even when I'm writing for work, I have to edit myself because my initial tone is very harsh. I'm just like very straight to the point person. So also like you're reading to hear your voice because you know your voice, and many times your partner knows your voice, right? And so I remember, especially when me and Pastor Will was having a heated, and we having a heated over email before we get the person. So that's another thing. We like going back and forth on email before we can get the person. Is you can hear your partners because you know your partner, right? You can hear like, why you put all that in caps? So now you yelling like, why you using that type of language? So you want to be careful about written language too. Don't get crazy.
Yeah, and plus, written for me, seeing some of your words on paper allowed me to see things for me to not be as defensive. I mean, the first read is really defensive, but by the time I get to the third read, I'm reading what you are really feeling,
Yeah.
right, and what you're really saying, and it gives me now I can respond um, based on that, and not the raw feelings of when it just happened and when we just saying stuff or not saying things across the bow.
Yeah. Yeah. So our last question is for you tonight, viewers. How do you need to improve your communication to increase its value? How do you need to improve your communication to increase its value? You want all your relationships to grow, to have traction, to have trajectory. But cheap talk is going to hurt it. And so, as you listen tonight, what are some things that came up that you're like, yep, this is the area I need to improve in, so increase my value that I'm bringing to the relationships in my life? Yeah. So that's our ending question tonight.
Yeah.
Hit us up in the chat, either with questions and or comments. We would love to hear from you about what you got from Talk is Cheap tonight, and how do you need to improve? Maybe this is also a good forum for us to give some feedback. You have some examples, anything. We open tonight for any of that chat. But I really like this topic tonight, Pastor Will, that you chose.
Awesome.
I think it's important. I think it's important for us to know when it's time for what conversations.
I'm going to share this in my closing, James 3:13.
That's it right here.
Who is wise and understanding among you?
Yeah.
By his good conduct, let him show his works and the meekness of wisdom.
Yes.
Right. So, how do we eliminate or defeat cheap talk?
Mm-hmm.
Is wisdom and showing works. So, not only talk, but wisdom and works.
Wisdom and works. That's good, Pastor. Wisdom and work, knowing what to do, when to do. I think also, that goes back to that, making sure you're having the right conversation at the right time. Are we ready for this conversation? Has our relationship matured to this place of, having this conversation face to face? Do we need to have it by email, text, whatever it is, until we can come to the table? I also believe, Pastor, well, you always got to come to the table at some point. Even if you start with written, the wise thing to do, the good conduct, make sure you get to that table and get face to face. Yeah. Good. Thanks for sharing. I see some comments in the comment section. Thank you for sharing how you're going to improve and take that value up. Yeah, this has been a great and exciting night of dating God's way. I enjoyed our conversation with you tonight. Thank you for your interaction. Yes. And let us know what you'd like to hear us talk about as well. Pastor Will, you know what I'm thinking about for next week? You ready for this?
Yep.
We still in our communication series. How to apologize.
I'm with you.
How to apologize. How to get some. How to apologize. How to forgive. I think it's a, that's a communication skill as well that gets in some heart areas. So yeah, give us some feedback about that. Any questions you have about our next week topic, and I'll make sure to add it in there. If you have a hard time forgive it, hard time apologizing, let's get into it next week. See you guys later. Good night. Love you guys.